Everybody, welcome to the True Crime Squad. I'm Kristi Brower, here for the moment by myself. Hopefully Katie Weaver will be joining me rather soon. She is traveling on her way here, on her way home from Boise. So hopefully I'm going to get her on with me right now. But in the meantime, I'm here. So hey everybody, how are you today? Happy Tuesday. Many of you are saying it's still really hot where you are. I'm very sorry to hear that. Our heat is finally broken. It's a little bit better here. We've had a little bit of rain, and we're actually just covered in smoke right now, and that really sucks. The smoke really, really sucks. So let's see here. It looks like Katie's internet is down. So I'm going to ask her if she would like to join from her phone. Because god damn it, you can't keep the True Crime Squad down. We're going to be here no matter what. Yes, please. Thank you, Bethy. I always forget to say these things. Please hit like. It helps our live do better. More people see it. Also, welcome to those of you on TikTok. I know you probably saw me do a couple weird things because I was figuring out today how to stream to TikTok and our other locations all on one computer. And guess what? I did it. I'm pretty psyched about that. So, I hope that y'all are enjoying us wherever we are. We're going to get started here. I will do my part, and hopefully by then we'll be able to get Katie on here. We're just having one of those kinds of days. I did want to show you something very fun that just came off the printer. It's not even in my store yet, but it will be soon. This cute little unicorn right here is my latest fun little baby. Now this is with a color change filament. So if you look at her on this side, she's green and dark blue. And if you look at her on this side, she's light blue and purple. So how cool is that? I think pretty cool. Anyway, you know me. I'm always into something fun and new. This will be up on my store very soon. You can find it. It's Fidget Whimsy over at truecrimesquad.com. Really a lot of fun. Katie says her internet is slowly coming up, which is great news, good news. We're going to make this happen no matter what. Kathy, I will be putting this up on Fidget Whimsy probably tomorrow. I need to take like a half a day and really put some new stuff up there. I'll share it in the Discord when it's up. Unicorns are my absolute favorite thing, and this one has wings, so even better. Oh my goodness, Lisa. Lisa says, my 23-year-old daughter took the first part of the bar today. I've been so nervous all day. Oh my gosh. Oh, fingers crossed for her. Because that's very exciting. Hopefully all went well. Oh, I have to show you something really fun that listener Melissa sent Katie and I. These tumblers. From a store in Fruitland, Utah, called the Big G or the G Spot. She knew we would laugh about it because we're just like that, so she sent us these. And I just wanted to say thanks to Melissa. I have one for Katie when I see her next. It was really, really fun. Deanna wants to know if I can make some jumbo Russian piping tips with my printer. I probably can, Deanna. I just have to figure out like if somebody else has already come up with the file or not. So, Deanna, if you're in Discord, message me there. If not, go to our Facebook page and message me there, and we'll figure it out. I just need to know what the dimensions and stuff are. Yeah, the G-spot is, it's so funny. It's just so funny. The funny part of it is that there's probably people in Fruitland that don't know what this means, which I also find very hilarious. Okay. Poor Katie. Her phone has hardly any service. She said Rexburg is like a black hole today. Is there a day when Rexburg is not like a black hole? Those of you Daybell Vallow case followers, Rexburg is always a black hole. Anyway, I'm just going to get started, and I think Katie will be joining us soon. So, I am going to kick this off with, well, a little bit of WTF news, guys. Last week, we covered the murder of Sonya Massey. You all remember we watched some very traumatic vest cam footage of a police officer who shot her. Very flimsily believing she was going to throw a pot of boiling water at him, but we all could see from the video that that really was not the case. But he shot her in the head, and he then did not render her aid and would not let the deputy that was with him render her aid either. And unfortunately, Ms. Massey passed away, which her 17-year-old son has been breaking the internet's heart the last few days, talking about how he's still just numb. He can't even believe this is real. Can't even believe this happened. Really, really hideous situation. So, we have been learning about Sean Grayson. Sean Grayson is the officer who shot Sonya Massey. And we'd heard some things, that he'd had like 6 jobs in 2 or 3 years in different police departments. We've learned a lot more about him now. And honestly, guys, it just keeps getting worse with Sean Grayson. And it definitely makes us really question why Sean Grayson was a police officer at all. How he managed to maintain his job after some of the things that he had already done. And we, talked about how sometimes bad eggs in the police get passed around from department to department, which, considering his 6 jobs, that was most definitely the case with Sean Grayson. But we know quite a few more things about him now. So I want to talk to you about that. He had been in trouble quite a bit. He started out in the military, and he lasted a very short time. He lasted a very short time in the military. We don't really know why he was discharged exactly, because the military is pretty tight-lipped about that. But what we do know is that he wasn't in for very long, and there was some kind of an incident that resulted in him being discharged. So then he started trying to get jobs as a police officer. And immediately had some problems. Some of the things that problems he ran into, he failed to obey a command while working for another sheriff's office in Illinois. This was in Lincoln and Lincoln County, and he was told he needed high-stress decision-making classes. He actually was in trouble and has needed a bunch of different retrainings in multiple areas. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. We also know that beginning in 2015 and 2016, he had 2 DUIs. Just scary. Really, really scary, considering that he's a police officer and he's supposed to be, out there stopping DUIs, not causing them. So that's a really big red flag. But I want to play something for you. This is a sort of a disciplinary conversation that he was having with the sheriff in Lincoln County, Illinois. And I just think this gives you a pretty good idea of who he is as a person. So listen to this.
7 months on, how are you still employed by us?
I don't know.
Sean, do you understand what I am saying?
Yes, I do, sir.
And I've had this conversation with you before. If we can't trust what you say and what you see, we can't have you in our uniform. I'm calling you on your integrity. How does that make you feel?
I'm learning from it.
Are you angry with me for it?
No. I don't.
Do you understand it?
Yes. I don't get angry with this because, one, I have no experience. Before I came here, I had no experience. Two, I wasn't allowed to do this right here. I was not allowed to review my videos.
This is termination. I'm getting goosebumps. This is extremely concerning. Everybody likes you. I got to be able to trust you. Was this a purposefully done lie?
No. I full-heartedly, I still believed I was on North Madison until you just pulled up Google Maps and showed me in the daytime.
This is going to get deeper because you're going to have a hard time answering some questions here real quick.
Okay.
I was really concerned listening to his responses, how kind of flippant he was, and how just not really caring that he was in trouble, making excuses for his behavior. So apparently he's been in trouble for falsely documenting information. He was in trouble for continuing a high-speed chase after his superior stopped it. And he was going 110 miles an hour. And he stopped the chase because he hit a deer. He could have killed himself. I'm sure he killed the deer. He could have killed lots of other people. But listen to that flat, zero emotion affect. Where have we heard that before? Chad Daybell, right? Like, there's no emotion behind it. There's no anything. There's no response, really. Now, I will tell you that some people have said he was arrested. He was fired after that. That's not actually true. He wasn't fired after that. But this was hey, you got to straighten your shit out or you're going to get fired. But yes, Grancy might be, I'm thinking psychopath here. Psychopath, sociopath, no emotional response. If you were in that big of trouble and there was a risk that you were going to lose your job because of the choices that you'd been making at work, do you not think that there would be some concerns for you? That you might be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've really messed up. I want to make this better. He didn't have any of that. He wasn't sorry. He made excuses. Like that, he just knew and doesn't know anything. Guys, he's worked at 6 different police departments. And also because he was not allowed to review his own films. Yeah, because those films aren't for you, dummy. They're for your boss to find out, are you doing your job or not? And clearly, or not. Right? Why, with all of these red flags, was he still hired again? I will tell you, Katie is not going to be able to join us. Everything's dead. Whatever's going on in Rexburg has taken out her internet and her cell service. So something's going on up there, which means that it's just going to be me today. And so we will get to our other story that we were promoting today on another show, because unfortunately we can't quite get there. But let's talk about this Sean Grayson stuff. Right? Was he on medication? Yeah, there is sort of an inappropriate chuckle there. Right, Angela? Kind of acts like he thinks he's in an action movie, almost like this isn't real until he actually killed someone. But it was sure leading up to some of that. Well, guess what else? This just, yikes. So now the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council has filed a grievance saying that Sean Grayson was terminated without just cause. Remember, the same Sean Grayson who murdered Sonya Massey and was fired for that and has now been charged with first-degree murder. Now, we know he has pled not guilty. However, we have all seen the video in which he did, in fact, shoot her. So here's what they're saying. I don't know, man. I think if you were going to fight an unfair firing, this would not be the one. Just my thoughts. So here's what the grievance form says. The grievant was terminated without just cause. Further, the employer publicly disseminated details of the investigation and termination on Facebook in violation of the CBA and prior to giving the grievance of or his representatives notice of the decision to terminate. Reinstatement and reimbursement of all lost wages, restoration of all lost benefits, and any other appropriate relief is the remedy they are seeking. Now, let's be clear. They released that body cam footage because they were afraid of riots in that town. Because it was known in the community that there had been some lies told. That initially, Sonya Massey's family was led to believe that this was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Remember that? And the police felt like they needed to get ahead of this, let the community know that they were on top of it, and that they fired him. Here's the police cam. Here's what we're doing about it. We are not pushing this under the rug, right? Look, generally, I am very supportive of unions because they really make work environments better. But in the case of first-degree murder, commit by a police officer who has now already been charged with that murder, I don't think that is where this applies. I think it's a pretty gross look for their police union there. That this is the case that they would try to make? I don't get it. Here's a statement from the labor union. As a labor organization, we have obligation to protect our members' procedural and due process rights contained in the collective bargaining agreement. Those rights come with strict timelines. Okay, I get it. I do. If there was any question at all of what had happened here, but it's literally on camera. We've all seen it. And they did what they needed to do for their community over protecting this man who killed someone in their community. I just find it gross and inappropriate to get involved. Right, will the union pay for his defense attorney? I don't know. I don't know, you guys. Right, the public has the right to know. Right, and how would yeah, exactly, Angela. How would the citizens he's supposed to serve and protect feel about him being reinstated? And how can they reinstate him? He is in jail, being held on charges of first-degree murder. Right? Wouldn't the union have some discretion over who gets protected? Well, I mean, honestly, if you're in a union and you're paying your dues, you have to be protected. That is. And they may just be covering their bases because they know that, but it's pretty gross. it's pretty damn gross. So there are some other things. There have actually been a lot of complaints about Sean Grayson. Lots of things that he's done over the years that he was not fired for. One is a woman filed a complaint claiming that he tried to watch as she was strip searched at the jail. And her fiance, who was an inmate at the Logan County Jail, claimed that Grayson questioned him in front of other inmates as retaliation for the girlfriend's complaint. I mean, literally risked that guy's life. And also, hello, sexual assault. What the hell? So we know that he was sent for some extra training. So what they wanted, this was in Logan County. There's a lot of things went bad in Logan County, Illinois. He was sent, or at least directed, to seek additional traffic stop training, report writing training, high-stress decision-making process classes, and he needed to read, discuss, and understand the previously issued Logan County Sheriff's Department policies. I mean, isn't that pretty much everything that he needs more training on? I know you all join me in this, but I do not understand how this guy made it through all of those police departments. With this kind of behavior, why was he hired after all of these things had already occurred? Grant says Illinois is a strong union state. So I guess some of the jobs that he didn't last at were because he was living in the wrong jurisdiction. And he didn't want to move. That happened a couple of times. There were a couple of other times where he was only given part-time work and he wanted full-time work. And he finally got full-time work in the county where he killed Sonya Massey. But, you know, it kind of makes you wonder why they didn't want to give him full-time work. Or does that just answer our question for us? I would imagine good officers get full-time work, and the not-so-great ones get not full-time work. Right? Kristi says this guy has so many issues. Steroids, maybe? I don't know. Untreated mental illness. The very flat, emotionless affect that we saw, well, that we heard in that recording, really makes me question what's up with him. Yeah. Right, Sandwillow. And you're right. What we know is that the police departments hire the same offenders repeatedly. What we don't know is why. Yeah, it's a scary thing, but that is something that law enforcement officers get passed around. Nurses get passed around. Doctors get passed around. Teachers also get passed around like this. And it's terrifying that they don't want to deal with the issue itself. They'll just make it somebody else's problem. And that's very clearly what happened with this guy. Why would he have had so many jobs in such a short amount of time? He did not go anywhere during military. He was never deployed. He never did anything. He was in the military a very short amount of time. Right, Angela, there's another one. Bad priests just get passed around. Yeah, the Mormons do it too. Right, to save on training expenses? Maybe. I don't know, man. I don't get it. If somebody's showing plenty of signs of being a bad egg, why would you want them to continue being a police officer in another area? The Not My Problem Brigade is really, really scary. And, you know, there is a fight right now for there to be some kind of national database of police officers and why they lost their job or major write-ups, that kind of thing. And as you know, there's a push, another push, a different kind of push, that would make police officers immune from prosecution. Completely. Can you imagine that? They're already pretty protected. But to give them more protection after stuff like this happens, that is terrifying to me. To think that it, especially because of some of the people that are attracted into law enforcement are guys like this guy who wants to be big and bad and drive fast and shoot guns. The good police officers are the police officers that want to make the world a better place, that want to make their communities safer, that want to find ways to solve problems without violence. That's not the kind of police officer that Sean Grayson was, obviously. But why? Why protect this guy? After all the stuff that he had done, why protect him? Right, Angela, no one is above the law. And believing that anyone is a very scary thing. Yeah. Right? We're going down a very dangerous path here. This has already occurred where now apparently our president is immune from prosecution. Scary. Shouldn't be. No one should be above the law. That's not how a democratic government works. And if there are no potentials in potential consequences for poor behavior, what's to stop people? I mean, we already have a huge problem with police brutality in this country. And now we've got stuff like this. So, and, you know, a lot of the police departments that are involved in this particular case that he worked for, they're not talking. They don't want to. They don't want to be involved. But I think that's scary because they're covering their own asses. And now we're in this situation of this man is facing first-degree murder charges for murdering an innocent woman who asked for help from the police. And this guy just went off. We all saw the video. There was no danger to the police officer there. If he was afraid she was going to throw that water, he could have taken a couple of steps back and been away from it. But she wasn't trying to throw the water. There's nothing in that video that shows that she's going to throw the water. Yeah. Right, Christine. It's hard to prove something, and if they can't prove it, they can't say it. They just find something or make it hard for them and make them quit. Except that they do have provable things on him. For one, he's had 2 DUIs. Why is he allowed to be a police officer if he's had 2 DUIs? And then the high-speed chase thing. Terrifying. That he would just keep going and not follow orders. Insane. Right, exactly, Angela. Jobs where a person doesn't have to earn respect attracts predators. Right, we're taught that we are to respect police officers, right? Just because they're police. But I think that's wrong. I do. I think that everyone has to earn respect, and they don't get it automatically from me just because of their position. Guys, as a social worker and as a domestic violence advocate, I have worked with a lot of police officers. And I have worked with some great ones. And I have worked with some that just really don't give a shit. And I've worked with some terrible ones. They run the gamut. And, you know, here in Idaho, the only education our police are required to have is post-training. They do not have to have college education. Which I think is a huge mistake and is a big thing that needs to change in this country, that needs to be required, that they need to all have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice or sociology or social work or psychology, something to give them some perspective, uh, and some ethics, teach them some real actual ethics. We don't have that here, and I think a lot of states don't have it. And little small jurisdictions like we have in Idaho, a lot of times they just take whoever they can get. And then we end up with people like Sean Grayson. Yeah, Kathy, you're right. The comment about "I rebuke you" was odd, and we know now that Sonya Massey had schizophrenia and she was experiencing some kind of a mental health event. Um, but she didn't actually do anything, and the only reason she had the boiling water in her hand is because he told her to take it off the stove. Like, I mean, none of it makes sense. Right, I think so too, Angela. They should have to have police officers should have to have a license that can be taken away. Right, right. As a social worker, I don't anymore because I don't work in that field, but I had a license that could be taken from me if I broke the rules. All mental health and healthcare workers have that. Lots of other jobs have that too. So why don't police? Why don't we hold them to the highest standard possible? Because their job is to enforce the law and protect citizens and to know how to de-escalate a high-stress situation. And we certainly found that Sean Grayson did not know how to do that. He was supposed to have some new training on that in 2022. Do you think he went to the training or even gave shit about the training? He didn't have any de-escalation skills at all. His de-escalation skill was, I'm going to shoot you in the head. And then he did. I mean, did he not have a taser? Did he not have pepper spray? Did he not know how to take a few steps back just in case? Like, there's so many options that he had that he did not take. Right? And the cops came in her house and they started treating her like she was a suspect. The way they were questioning her and pressuring her was also not cool. It was like they were pushing for something else because they didn't find an intruder. And they kept referring to her by a code that indicates someone with a mental health emergency. She wasn't having a mental health emergency, really. She may have been experiencing something in her mind, but she didn't try to hurt anyone. She didn't do anything. But she did get pretty suspicious of them. And looking at that video, I can see why. I would have been suspicious of them as well, wouldn't you? Yeah. Right, Christine, why would you put yourself or anyone in jeopardy? So they are required continuing education. They are required to most police departments are, and we are here in Idaho. When I worked in domestic violence, we would put on a training every year for local law enforcement. I'll tell you, I've done a lot of public speaking and I've done a lot of training as a social worker. And I got to tell you, those were the most miserable trainings I've ever put on. Because most of the men would sit in that room like this, looking like this, all pissed off, arms across their chest. You could not get them to participate. One of the things that I love to do when I teach is to, ask questions, get people talking, use scenarios, No. They would go so that they could get the certificate that said they went. They would not participate. They treated us like shit. Treated us like they didn't want to be there and that we were full of shit and they didn't care about what we had to say. And I'm not saying all police are like that. I know they're not. But in my experience here, that's how it was. And there were people that were there because their superiors had required them to be there. But you could tell that that's the only reason they were there and they didn't give a damn. They would whisper and talk to each other while we were presenting. They wouldn't ask any questions. They wouldn't share any experiences. It was not a fun time. We did not look forward to putting it on. We did not look forward to trying to engage them as an audience. It was not fun at all. That attitude makes me think of guys like Sean Grayson. I agree that all police departments should have a mental health unit, and that mental health unit should be headed by mental health professionals who work alongside police, rather than we put police in situations on a regular basis that they shouldn't be in because they're not trained. They don't know how to handle them. They don't know how to handle mental health crises. All they know how to do is shoot, for a lot of them. Not all, obviously, but many really don't know what to do if someone is having a mental health emergency. They don't know what they're supposed to do. But right, I still don't even think that applies with Sonya Massey. She said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Okay. And that was harmful in what way exactly? Also, her autopsy has proven that she was shot just below her eye socket, and the bullet exited behind her ear, and that it was clear that she was below him. He shot from above. She had crouched down and was trying to put the water down or trying to protect herself from him when he shot her. So she wasn't trying to throw boiling water on him, was she? No. As usual, this is a good opportunity for us to look at what are the requirements for police in our own area. Go learn in your town, in your county. What are they required? What kind of education are they required to have? What kind of training? What kind of yearly education? Go get involved. Find out about it. See what's going on. How is your, do you have an elected sheriff? What about your police chief? Ours is appointed by the mayor. I think a lot of them are like that. What are they doing to be proactive? What are your police departments doing to be proactive? We have a CRT here, which is a crisis response team. They're supposed to make things better in mental health situations. From what I've seen, they don't always. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they really don't. These people are supposed to be trained on how to handle things, but they don't always know. And the money and time isn't always put into it. What I'm seeing here in our police force is that there's a lot of militarizing of them happening. They keep getting more and more military style equipment. They have what's called a Bearcat now. And a Bearcat is a piece of machinery that you can drive up to a house and it will punch a hole in the house and rip out one whole sidewall to break into a house to get to someone. I mean, do they ever actually need to use that here? Because I've seen them use it on like practice houses before, but there's not a whole lot of that going on in reality. Oh, Jane says San Francisco PD brought in, sorry, we just jumped. In a meditation guru to teach mindfulness. That's awesome, because that definitely helps with de-escalation. Let's see. Terry says, I think every community needs a similar unit that works with police and other first responders to provide immediate care and assessment. We're called MCRRT, Mobile Crisis. Yes. They're trying to make the first mobile crisis team here for like adult mental health emergencies. That's something they're working on here in Idaho Falls. Should have had it a long time ago. When I worked in domestic violence, that's basically what the police used us as, because we would come in a crisis situation, and it was a lot of traumatic events. It wasn't just domestic violence and sexual assault, as though those aren't enough, because they were, but I went out on suicides. I went out on murders. I went out on, like, to meet with a family that was very traumatized because a man who was running from the police broke into their house and scared the hell out of their kids. I went out on all kinds of things, and they used us because we would show up. Um, and we did have crisis response training, and we did have access to resources, and so we were helpful in that situation. But we weren't being we were a domestic violence and sexual assault program, and we were pretty much outside our purview doing a lot of the things that we did. I'm very grateful I had that job. I've learned a lot. I have a lot of experience behind me when I talk about these kinds of things because I have literally been in those kinds of crisis situations with police on many, many occasions. And I know how little most of them know. And I know how many of them were like, I'm so glad you're here. I have no idea what to do in this situation. One time we had to help a family break the news to some children that their mother had murdered their father. That was a really rough one. But the police were like, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to help this family. And that was a really hard one. We helped a woman once whose husband had taken his own life. And before he did that, he threw the only set of keys to their home, their business, and all of their vehicles out in the snow. And she was like out of town and not even at her house. There was a lot of domestic violence in that situation, but she was completely stranded. She couldn't even get into her own home. And we came and got her. She took her to our shelter for the night and helped her get to family who could help her get home and get into her house the next day. I mean, so we did a lot of stuff like that. But I mean, that is a highly unusual situation. Most police departments do not have access to something like that. Right? Not enough vetting in the hiring process and lack of leadership. You're right, Brianna. That's definitely there. Terry says, "Oh, we're not cops. We're trained in healthcare and first aid." About the crisis response team that you do. That's wonderful. Yeah, the militarization is happening everywhere, and it's terrifying, and it's not giving them skills, like, and it's the way that police respond to things has changed a lot in my lifetime, where police used to be part of the solution when things were escalating, and now they just escalate further. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, they get de-escalation training and stuff, but it just depends on skill level, if someone can use that or not. Grant said, I would like to think there is a police academy. I hope for your sake. They call it Post here. Uh, Tina, a Bearcat is an armored vehicle like a tank. They use them here all the time. Well, we have one here in Little Bonneville County. I'll tell you what, they don't ever need to use it. And hopefully they never do, but yeah. Tom says, my stepfather was a police officer. He went to college on his own and became a sergeant detective. See, those are the kind of folks that I want to see more of because they're certainly in a better position to de-escalate a bad situation, and they're certainly in a better position to react in a way that is reasonable. They've been trained. This kid, Sean Grayson, I don't think that there was enough training on the planet for him, honestly. He is the kind of guy who should not be a police officer, but he's also the kind of guy that really wants to be one. We all know those guys. And there are good police officers. I know that there are. But the system is bad. The structure is bad. And it is. It's all across the country. There are major problems. Right, yeah. What kind of vetting is even happening? Not much. Police do have a high burnout rate. They also have a high domestic violence rate, a high alcoholism rate. and a high suicide rate. They do. And a huge part of that is because they are not given the resources that they need to do their jobs. And it is extremely traumatizing. I mean, you think about the officers that were present in finding Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow's bodies. These guys are traumatized for life. And some of them get help, and a lot of them don't. Do we have a motive yet? Well, as far as we know, the motive is that he thought he was at risk, that he was in danger of her throwing the boiling water on him. That's what we have. I think that's all we'll ever get. Terry says we go on everything as well: murders, suicides, domestic violence, and anything affecting the community. We have a high instance of mental health incidents, being an indigenous community. Ah, okay. Terry, I think that's so awesome. I wish we had way more of them. Having worked on one, and just sort of accidentally, but at least being a social worker and being trained in trauma response and resource management and de-escalation and those kinds of things, it was a really, really powerful experience. And I saw direct at firsthand how beneficial that could be for every community. I wish that it was a required thing. Oh, there's a lot of intergenerational trauma and addiction disorders where you live. Yeah. Yeah, Sandwell says, I was a social worker when I burned out. I bought a farm, got as far away as I could from the life I'd been living. Yeah. I got sick with an immune system disease that makes it so I can't work with the public. So I do this now because it's just not safe for me to be exposed to too many people. And you're right, Lee. It does put extra burden on good officers, because the bad ones leave a lot of work to be done. But honestly, I've seen a lot of good ones stand by and watch something terrible like George Floyd happen. Let's see. If they were Victoria says if they were licensed like healthcare workers, they'd have to take a state exam, right? Which they should. I had to take a state exam to be a social worker. My sister, who's a physical therapy assistant, had to take a state exam to be licensed in her field. My wife is a counselor. She had to take a state exam. And then we all had to do our continuing education to keep our licenses up. I agree, RJ. RJ says, guys, remember the bullies on the playground? A lot of them are police officers now. Unfortunately, the job attracts folks like that and rewards them and keeps them. Let's see. Are they seriously trying to reinstate him? I don't know. I mean, the police union, yes. The police department itself, no. I don't think so. But I haven't seen that for sure. I just want to be 100% sure about that. But I don't think so. I don't think that they want to, by any means, that the police department that fired him. Right, insure and bond them. Agreed. Kimberly says, I had a police officer in Snohomish County, Washington, tell me I deserved to be shoved. Wow. No, that's the hard part. We've all had some bad experiences in life with police officers. I've had good ones too. I have. Yeah, and they don't get good support. Yeah, Terry, and they do have a lot of PTSD. That's the whole defund the police movement. I think the point that they were trying to make, and I just think they used the wrong words, was that what we need to do is we need to shift the focus away from militarizing our police and using the money that police departments get to militarize them to providing more support, providing support people that go with them, mental health professionals, crisis intervention people, advocates, that kind of thing. and giving them themselves more support. It's not that I want to defund the police, it's that I want the funding to go to things that actually benefit the police officers themselves and their communities. Yeah. How long was this guy working before he accrued all these violations? Well, he started in 2020, 2021. I mean, it's all within like a 3-year period. Yes, it took them 22 days to notify Jelani Day's mother that they found him. I know, there are a lot of very strange choices made by police departments that I do not understand. Right, right. And yeah, they had a very difficult time identifying him. It was a terrible, terrible situation. Right? Who would want him? I don't know who would want him. I don't know why they wanted him, why they wanted to take on the liability of this man. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Thank you very much, Terry. The super chat is on. If you want a tip, that's always appreciated over on YouTube. Gifting is also on in TikTok. Whatever you can do to help us, we appreciate it because we're just a 2-woman show over here. Right, police do need therapy, and there's nothing wrong with that. They've been through some hellaciously traumatic shit. Right, you're right. And if they were licensed, like a lot of other professionals have to be, they couldn't just go on to the next job if they'd gotten in trouble. That if they lost their license, for sure, and even if they didn't, if they had sanctions and things, those things could be passed on. Let's see. Samuela says, I think part of the problem that has caused the escalation of incidents is hiring officers directly from the military. There's different training, and these are 2 very different jobs. Agreed. And that is exactly what happened with Sean Grayson, is he went from the military to the police. And, in military, you're trained to go to war. Well, you're not at war with your own... You're not at war with your own citizens. It's not a war. But many treat it that way. Yeah, Terry, I bet you do have stories. I do too. You see some shit when you go out with the police. Lee said, I tried to look up stats on situations like this to get a better grasp on what the real issues are, but I couldn't seem to find any that were tangible. And there aren't any. That's the problem. This stuff really stays at home within these departments, and a huge amount of what happens with police officers, because it is a personnel issue, will never see the light of day, which is scary. It's really scary because there are things that should be kept public, so that we know who our officers are. Right. It's wild that you need a license to be a hairdresser, but not a cop. I agree, Deanna. It is really wild. Right. They do their own internal investigations. And they're seen as a personnel issue. And so unless it becomes a criminal issue, we won't know. And unfortunately, once it becomes a criminal issue, it's too late. And that's really what sucks. That is really what sucks, because if we had more of a view into what was happening with our officers. Now, I will tell you that East Idaho News has started doing something where once a year they publish some things like that. Like they've seen them publish a story about, here are all the teachers that got in trouble in Idaho in the last year, and here's what they did and where they taught, what schools they were from. We need to see some things like that for police as well. We have the right to know. I agree. Well, we all have some good ideas here. That's why getting involved at your local level really matters. Is your sheriff up for re-election? What's his stance on police accountability? Be worth finding out. I don't know how it works in your area, but around here, mayors hire police chiefs. So what is your mayor's stance on police accountability and police training and transparency? These are super important for all of us to know. It's why voting in your local communities is really important. If you're not from the US, obviously your system is a lot different, but wherever you are, it's important to find out, how do people get into leadership in law enforcement? How do they get there? And who's making those rules and who's making those decisions? And and also then, of course, your legislature and your governor. What kind of laws are they enforcing? Super, super important. Yeah, it's true. Angela says we have a bad pattern in this country of not being willing to try something different, which is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's very true of law enforcement. Christine says, my dad was a state park superintendent, and he was a licensed park ranger. He went to the police academy. How interesting. I love park rangers too. Sleepy says she loves park rangers. I do too. They see the world a little bit differently, but many of them are police, as we know, considering that shooting that happened on the 4th of July in Yellowstone National Park that we talked about. Lee says, what if there's nobody running against him or her that's any better? Lesser of two evils, or don't vote. That's the never-ending challenge. And it's the never-ending challenge for us where I live, because lots and lots of local positions that are elected go uncontested. But I agree. I think you're right, Angela. If any agency should be beholding to the public, it is law enforcement. Right. Yes. Thank you, Sandwilla, for the super chat. Always appreciated. Okay, well, we had another topic today, and we're not going to be able to get to that one, unfortunately, because Katie's internet is just down. But this is about Doug Lovell. This is a case out of Utah, and about his death penalty sentence being overturned. So it's a very interesting story. We're still going to tell it. Maybe it'll be on Thursday that we tell that. We will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Mountain for case updates. There are tons of case updates. So, be prepared to see what's going on in a lot of the cases that we are covering, because we're going to do all of that tomorrow night on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain, as we always do. And then we'll be back Thursday with another live, and we'll probably do Katie's case. You'll probably still get to, hear about Doug Lovell and the Doug Lovell situation, because it's an important one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this conversation. Thanks for always being understanding if we have some kind of technology problem, because, boy, it just happens to us sometimes. I think it happens to everybody. But I do appreciate you. I appreciate your presence, whether you're here live on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, if you're over on X, if you're on the podcast and listening after the fact or watching after the fact on YouTube. We appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here. And you know it, we are the True Crime Squad. Have a good day. Maybe, huh? I don't know, guys. It won't let me can't play my outro, so I'm just going to say, have a good night.